Well, hello, sports fans. It's Tuesday, May 5th, 26. I'm Larry. Here's the Laren Hall. This is the coffee. It is let's see, it's from the Sleepy Monk. Um, and it's a fiddle. I've got to get the exact name right, but I got to tell you, it's a nice medium roast. Oh, and as the caffeine courses through my central nervous system, I say the immortal words of the one, the only Joe Piani. Hey, campers. Mm-mm. Hope everybody's doing well today. Well, we got a lot to talk about. First of all, um, you can't go on Instagram right now without seeing ads from Adidas, Hoka, On, Brooks, some Nike. Um, it's everywhere, and the way that brands are advertising because it's cheaper is they're using Instagram, they're using Facebook, they're using Twitter, and they're trying to get to you, right, and sell you shoes and sell you apparel and tell you how cool it is because it's not just about function, baby. It's about form. The design's really important. Our friends at Adidas have known that since 1948, right? Um, and the folks at Nike, when they came in the 1970s, first it was Blue Ribbon Sports. Okay, now why is I'm getting this little light in my eye, and I just want to make sure. They what? Oh, it's okay. Let me turn this one off. Let's see. There we go. All right, now we're good. I think everybody should be able to see me now. Yes. Okay. So um, Reebok was one of the first brands, and they started in 1892 under the Foster. It was Joseph Foster family um, shoe manufacturers, and I've got pictures of track spikes from right around 1900. Alf Shrub ran in their shoes. Um, the Dossler brothers in the 1920s. The name translated from German as Dossler Brothers Shoe Factory, was it Adi and Rudy? And then in 1948, they went their separate ways, and you have Adidas and you have Puma, two of the most iconic brands. But right now, Adidas is on fire. And I wanted to talk to you about why they're on fire. Well, um, you got to blame the CEO, um, Born Gilden, and I'm hoping I'm pronouncing his name correctly. I've met him a couple times. I met him while he was at another company, Puma, before he left there, and probably one of the best untold stories that I would kill for is how he left Puma to go to Adidas because I think it just it would allow you to get into this guy's mind because I think Jorn is one of the smartest people I know out there. There is a group to manage and to be a CEO of a brand and to survive in that position requires an enormous skill set and almost schizophrenia, the ability to be able to understand and see many things and see things moving in many speeds. Adidas has always been known for quality. They get quality people, they develop quality product. Their challenges have been in the past is can anybody make a decision? Um, are they making the right decisions, right? All that kind of fun stuff. Well, when Mjorn came in, one of the first things he did is he took the channels out of Adidas and he empowered managers so they make decisions. Now, this means that can make errors, and that's always the big thing. I think it's one of the biggest things that's happened at Nike is that people are terrified of making decisions because for last 4 years, right? Um, there have been layoffs every year. And 3 years ago, they seemed to purposely let go a whole bunch of people who had life experience, 20, 30 years at the brand. The people who could help them figure out, oh, Ignore this shit. This is the important stuff. And so when you kill the management class in a company, why don't you expect to have total screw ups sometimes? Okay. So what Adidas did, and Adidas was having challenges. Um, there were many people at Adidas for a long time who said, well, it's okay being second best man to Nike, the thing is right now is Adidas is doing what Brooks has done. Brooks did under Jim Weber and is doing under Dan Sheridan, which is they name their game. Adidas has named its game. They want to be the fastest shoe. They want to be the lightest shoe. They want people to really dig their design. While they're focused on that performance, they're doing collaborations with some of the hottest designers and artists in the world. And they're small because it's about getting the influencers out there, right? The influencers in the olden days were Jesse Owens and Emil Zatopek and the guys who were wearing, the men and women who were wearing Fanny Blankers Cohen, Babe Dietrichson, the people who were wearing their shoes, right? A little trivia right here. When Adi Dassler made track spikes for the great Emil Zatopek. And for those of you who don't know Emil Zatopek, so let me just give you the quick synopsis. Otherwise, I'm going to start throwing up. Emil Zatopek is the greatest distance runner of all times. There will never be anybody like him, 2-hour marathons, whatever you want to talk about. This guy won the 10,000, the 5,000, the marathon in the 1952 Olympics. As he was coming into the stadium in the marathon, his wife was winning the javelin, the only husband-wife couple to do that in track and field that I know about, right? Emil spoke 7 languages and he would shake people's hands before the start of the race. He was called the Czech locomotive, and he looked like he was in childbirth during races. His form was crap, upper body, but he was a brilliant runner. And he trained doing things like, well, his interval training workout, one of them was 40 times a 400, some of them at race pace, some of them below race pace. He would hold his breath for the 300 meters from the end of the block to his barracks. People thought he had been drinking, and many times he had been, right? But Zatopek was one of those rock stars, and that Adidas was very smart to ally with their brand. This was back, in the 1940s and 1950s, right? It's a different world now. The balkanization of media, and what I mean by that is there's so many media outlets, there's no way you can get to all the people that you want to anymore with one source. Hence, the way that we've been successful at Run Blog Run with our stories and our features is we take them and distribute them through 9 Facebook sites, 5 Twitter sites, and 3 Instagram sites. Plus, we email blast to coaches to get the word out on important pieces. And we've now just upped our coaching list from 11,000 to 70,000. We'll have 26,000 coaches at the junior high level, 36,500 at the high school, 3,500 at college, and 7,000 in the club area. It's what I did in the 80s and 90s with American athletics and American track and field by mailing the magazine to coaches' houses if they wanted it, or to the schools. The problem is now about print is that many schools don't even deliver mail anymore. So I'm looking at bringing back print in a limited way, probably starting out with an annual, then building in. But I'm probably going to deliver it to the coaches' homes because I don't think any longer there's just so many budgetary issues for schools right now. Delivering mail is really low on their priority list. And it used to be the end all and be all, because we did a magazine to 37,553 uh, high school track coaches with American Track and Field for 20 years, and then 300 to 600,000 athletes 2 to 4 times a year. So, that was kind of our niche. But let's get back to Adidas. So, what Bjorn Gilden did was he empowered his managers. Are they going to make bad decisions? Yeah, but they're making decisions. The problem at many of the other brands, the brands that are stuck, and only you guys can answer this for yourselves, they don't make decisions. You don't know who's in charge. Who's in charge of running? Who's in charge of running advertising? Who's in charge of marketing? Is marketing anything more than Google Words? Do you have people with a life experience to understand that there are places for print, there are places for digital, there's places for social? How do you mix it together? And how do you get the diverse marketplace that you want and you need for a brand to grow? And those are some of the questions I think Board Gilden asked. And I suspect it's what Elliot Hill's been asking for the last year. The problem is CEOs at Nike and CEOs, especially with American companies, when the stock price doesn't go up, when the value doesn't go up, the first thing they do is they cut people. It's called human capital, kids. My buddy Bruce Taylor did a magazine about it back in the 80s and 90s. It's the thing that American companies, especially, this has nothing to do with Trump. American companies have been doing this for 50, 60 years. They don't value their people. And the problem at Nike is so many of the veterans were let go for whatever the reasons. I suspect so they didn't have to pay retirement. Who knows? But, I know other companies like that. I watched it happen to my father with 2 companies in Silicon Valley when my dad turned 55 and 60. One of the places, he got a huge bonus one day, and 2 days later, his job was discontinued. I just thought, well, that's horseshit, and it's the kind of stuff that I see now in my, world. Most people think that me at age 67, I should be on oxygen and, reading Charles Dickens by the candlelight. Um, my attention span is such that I need to be doing things, and I enjoy doing what I do. And the truth is that many people need the value of someone with some life experience because we've made a lot of stupid mistakes, and I've made many. The idea is don't make the same mistakes that I make. Learn from them. And I think that's what the part of the job of what a CEO is. You look at Born Gilden, who's doing, I think, a great job at Adidas and is really taking that global brand to another world. You look at Elliot Hill, who has everybody dumping on him and hating him right now because he represents Nike. And it's cool to hate Nike right now. And that's just kind of a really short-sighted approach. There's great product coming down the line, which I've seen. The sad thing is one of the people who championed it, Tony Bignell, has left the company. And Tony was one of the best footwear people that I've ever known in any time frame. But the biggest problem that these brands are having is, and this is why Adidas is successful and will continue to be successful, they've put people in power that understand that sometimes you don't have to use that power, but sometimes you do. I recall a group at Nike with Kirk Richardson and Fritz Taylor and Tony Bignell and Tom Harchey. I remember Tom Harchey standing on tables and shouting from the mountaintop. And a friend that I was just talking to earlier today said, Larry, remember, these guys were arguing at the dinner table. They were fighting for their brands. And that just doesn't happen anymore. Most people in the current culture see their positions within brands as jobs and jobs only. And the problem is perhaps that's a bit healthier because a lot of marriages collapsed over the pressure of these jobs. A lot of people were financially destroyed when they left their jobs, um, and it's been very difficult. Now you notice I want to talk about a few other brands. First of all, Brooks. Um, Jim Weber put Brooks on the right place for 20 years. The challenges though that Dan Sheridan has are very different than what Jim had. Uh, and Dan is one of those guys who's come from the bottom up. He's gone through all the different job levels at Brooks, and I think it really gives him uh, um, a true benefit. And Brooks is again another one of those companies where people are allowed to make decisions. Some areas more than others. I think their product is firing on all cylinders. I just saw the Cascadia 20. I just saw the Ghost 18. I just saw the new Ghost Max. I saw the new Adrenaline. In fact, I've got the Adrenaline. I just haven't even taken it out of the box yet. It just got here yesterday with my new Brooks Beast T-shirt, which I'll be wearing proudly on one of our upcoming series, and I'll share it with you with that. But Brooks is the number one brand in performance running right now. Um, they've got this Hyperion silo of product that is perfect for the high school performance athlete. Now, a couple sidebars too. You got our friends at Saucony. Saucony could be huge. Their management, the management above Saucony at Wolverine, has no clue what they're doing. But Wolverine's been like that for years. No one knows what Wolverine's doing, and all they understand is selling gazillions of shoes. And sometimes they do that well. A lot of times they don't. And they've totally hosed brands. You've got the guys at Anta now who have Solomon Arctics. They have 29% of Puma. It's going to be interesting to see what they do there. I believe the reason why they got into Puma was because of the distribution and because Puma was in such disarray. Puma let go a ton of athletes in the U.S. They're going through management changes in the U.S. once again. And it is the sad thing is that Puma's got some product that people like, but for whatever reason, Puma hasn't been able to. They do incredible social media. You see them everywhere. They're pushing Usain Bolt, so there's concern about trying to do it right, correct? But the problem for Puma is connecting with the retailer and then connecting with the consumer. And many of the brands still don't get it. That's what Brooks does really, really well. I think Brooks does it better than anybody. And Nike just stopped working with brick and mortar, cut back because they were going to all go direct. But we've talked about this for 30 years, and it was a total shit show. And so, of course, it's going to take them 4 to 5 years to get where they need to be. What do I think of long term for Brooks? Or for Nike, I think Nike will dig themselves out. The challenge is they just let 1,400 more people go today. It's all over LinkedIn. And the sad thing is this, is they're really good people. And how does a CEO justify, why doesn't he just go and say, okay, we're going to cut costs, I'm going to take a cut to show some symbolism, but let's try for the next 4 months to really bust our ass. The first thing American companies do is they let people go. And it hurts them because at a certain point, who's going to buy your damn product? If people don't have jobs, who's going to buy your product? It makes no sense. It makes no sense for the long term, and it just shows you how silly it is because the stock market is firing on all cylinders um, in a world where there's 1,600 ships in the Strait of Hormuz that can't get out. Typically, on a day like this, I was just near the Strait of Hormuz just less than 2 months ago. There are 130 ships that go through a day. I'm really glad this U.S. Military uh, they spent a lot of weapons over there, but practically, what did they do? Um, and for business to do well, for the global business, and for the world to do well, we need stability. We have a leader in the U.S. right now who comes up with something new and strange every day. And the issue is that is it good for the country? Is it good for the world? Can you be good for both? Yes. The ignorance about American history, the ignorance about European history appalls me right now. Um, that people, well, I know a lot of people slept through history classes because there's a lot of shitty history teachers. And it should be one of the classes that you really need to listen to and learn about. But, that's just me talking. So, okay, let's get back on subject. So, this didn't happen overnight at Adidas, but Bjorn Gilden, from everything that I've read, and I've only talked to him a couple times. In group settings. I think I put one of them up recently with and what he did was go back to a way where people could make actual decisions and they were empowered to make decisions and they were encouraged to make decisions. And there's some great people at Adidas. I know Spencer Nell, Jennifer Thomas in sports marketing, Danny Lopez, the Danny and Jennifer. Well, Jennifer's global, I believe, and Spence is global with sports marketing. But what they did with London comes once in a generation, And the funny thing was, going back to 2017, I remember asking some people who will remain nameless at various brands, Adidas, Nike, Brooks, and stuff, and asked them about the 2-hour marathon. And some wag said, the only way someone's going to break 2 hours is if you drop them off a cliff. And the 2-hour marathon idea that Nike came up with shook up the sport. But here's the thing, and I've told this story before. I was in Doha, Qatar. It was early May 2017. I stayed up the entire night to watch the Eliud Kipchoge's attempt at running a 2-hour marathon. 275,000 people were interacting with my tweets as I was commenting on every kilometer and photos and stuff like that. Right? They were all under 25. It was amazing, and what it told me was that Sandy Brubaker, the late Sandy Brubaker, and Mark Parker, the two behind this. Sandy died pretty quick after the 2-hour marathon. It really shook things up. It's the kind of thing that Nike should do. Like one of the kind of things that Nike should do is that runners are welcome, walkers are tolerated. The absolute bullshit about pace shaming and the hypocrisy from the running community about that appalls me. And here's why. The reason why people run Boston is because it's such a tough event to get into. It already limits the number of people that are in there. It has nothing to do with diversity or anything like that. You have to run to qualify. It's very hard. I mean, the best race walkers could probably qualify in some age groups, right? But most can't. So it's the geeks of geeks at Boston. The message from Nike was right on. The response that Nike apologized was absolute bullshit. The guys from the 70s and 80s and 90s would have told you to shove it up your backside. They weren't hating men. They weren't hating women. They weren't hating walkers. They were shaking it up a little bit. And everybody played into it. The best response was UFOS. Because what did UFOS do? They said, hey, man, we don't do running shoes. We do recovery shoes. And I sat in the UFOS pop-up. I love doing this. I sat in the corner and had my, coffee, of course. What was I having? Oh, I was having a Starbucks cold brew. Yeah, because I needed some caffeine that day. And I just watched people come in and out of the marathon, but go into the store and buy. They weren't buying one pair, they're buying two, they're buying three. Why? Well, a lot of serious runners know that UFOS is the real shit. It is all day recovery, and you need to, if you're an athlete trying to run 3:05, 3:30 for your age group, 4 hours for your age group, and you have to average 5 minutes below that time to even get selected for Boston. I mean, everybody talks about, well, London's got 1.8 million people, and they're going to accept 50,000 people. Yeah, that's good, okay? But we're not talking about length here now, kids. What we're talking about is seriousness, okay? London's an incredible race, but London wouldn't be here without Boston and New York, okay? I love London. I used to love to go to London. At this point, London Marathon Media provides me with enough stuff to cover the race remotely. It's not like being there. As the great country singer Jimmy Buffett said, you can't describe a Kiss concert if you've never been there. And I find doing meets remotely just a fact of life right now because, we all have budgets, and when I had 15 shoe brands working with me, I could take a little bit from each one and got some help especially from our friends at Nike and Adidas, and to go to events because they wanted the events covered. And right now, people are afraid. The media thing, and my big beefs are this: influencers tell you what you want to hear, not what you need to hear. What I try to do as a sports journalist, I have relationships with Brooks. I have relationships with Nike. I have relationships with other brands, and I get into arguments with them, and I piss them off. And if I don't piss them off, I'm not doing my job. That's just because at the end of the day, a CEO needs to hear when they're screwing up, because if they don't, it's going to blow up in their face. And a lot of times, what they're surrounded with is sycophants, people who are saying, oh, you're bitching, dude. Yeah, oh, that shoe is so friggin' awesome, man. No one's gonna, everybody's competing right now. There's 80 brands out there. Go on to Running Warehouse. Go see what Joe Rubio's doing. And that's a case in point. Why is Joe so successful? Well, first of all, Joe's really damn good. And Joe is smart enough to surround himself with people who are better at doing what they do, then he can do it. That's what a great manager does, okay? That's what Dan Sheridan's doing at Brooks. That's what Bjorn Gilden's doing and I mess up Bjorn's name, Bjorn Gilden is doing at Adidas. That's what Elliott wants to do at Nike. The problem is right now, I hope they're not letting the people go that would have the answers, but I fear they let them go 3 years ago. And more, I am thinking, I'm trying to think of a brand right now that doesn't have a former Nike executive leading it. And the Nike executives don't have all the answers because at Nike, they had everything that they could use and they still could screw up. I see Hoka everywhere right now. And Hoka did huge changes within their organization and their corporate structure. And I'm not sure it's all for the best. But you know what? They're busting their chops. They're fighting the good fight. On running is finding a direction for them. Hoka has found a way for them. What Hoka's doing in trail, my brother goes to the Western States each year, and he just said what Hoka does there is just incredible. But running brands have got to be legit in trail, legit in road running, marathoning, track and field, cross country. Let's go to the high school thing because we've got a few minutes left. I'm going to go to 35 minutes today if people will put up with me. 550,000 people running high school cross country, 1.6 million running high school track, about 160,000 running indoor track this year. The top brands in terms of racing shoes and spikes, Nike's like 70%. Adidas is number 2. Asics, I believe, is 3. Brooks is 4. Nike and Adidas can afford to do entire track lines. If I was talking to a brand, I remember talking to the guys at K-Swiss 15 years ago, and they said, well, what should we do with our track spikes? I said, sprint shoe, maybe a basic throw shoe, distance spike, middle distance spike. That's it. Let them use Diodora, let them use Adidas, let them use Nike. All these brands, all 80 of the brands that are in the sport are contributing to the sport. And I quote this from John Bennett, the late CEO at Visa, just a great guy. But in 1990, John Bennett took the revenue, the cost from one ad commercial for TV, which is about $3 million. And he built a program around Harry Mara and Fred Samara called the Visa Decathlon program. He owned the decathlon. But it wasn't just about putting money into it. What he did is he taught these athletes the history, gave them pride in their event. They brought then Bruce Jenner, now Caitlyn Jenner. They brought Bill Toomey. They brought, Rayford Johnson. They brought in Bob Mathias. They brought in Milt Campbell. I got to meet all these guys. I was one of the few media who took advantage of going to each one. And it was a blast. And my son Adam at 5 and 6 got to meet all these guys. Dan and Dave, I've still got the shirts in plastic bags upstairs, and my Athens 2004 sweats, right? But that started in 92. Dave Johnson got the bronze medal. Dan O'Brien got a gold in 96. By that time, Dan had moved from Reebok to Nike, one of Reebok's dumbest moves. The Dan and Dave commercials they did were still some of the best commercials ever done in running. In fact, that next fall, one of the moving companies did a survey of college students, and 95% of them knew who Dan and Dave were. So they hired Dan and Dave to do a commercial for moving companies for college kids. Brilliant stuff. But Reebok screwed up. Reebok lost the lead in running 2 different times, and then a significant place in running a third time. And it was because of management. And their higher management just didn't let the people who knew running run it. And that's been the biggest problem with many of these brands. The problems at Nike are through the whole organization. No one person can be blamed. Will Nike become Pepsi down the road? I don't know. Can it keep its sass? Can it keep its irritation level? Because it needs to. That's part of Nike. The man who invented sports marketing was Horst Dassler. Horst Dassler was the son of Adi Dassler. And Horst was an insomniac. And he was smart enough to know he tied with all the Soviet bloc countries and supplied them with product and actually licensed, I think in the Soviet Union, they licensed Adidas product there, right? Um, and um, and he built unquestionably a brand that was colossal out of that. The sad thing is we lost him in 1986, right after I met him. I met him at the I believe it was the Super Show, and I was fascinated with just how he. I met that year. I met him and Matsuo Mizuno, and a couple years later, I met Mr. Katami at Onitsuka in Asics. So I'd worked with Asics for, my God, since 1980, yeah. But then with my own projects since '88, they were the first brand to come into American athletics. I met Mr. Katami, and we talked about how he sponsored Derek Clayton, my former boss. Derek had told me to use his name, and Mr. Katami was wonderful. And then Dr. Joe Ellis walked up to us, started talking, and sure enough, Asics took all my back covers, and then that's when Nike got involved. I found that being a nice person with a lot of the brands doesn't seem to help. They see that as being weak, which is sad. But that's just the way things are right now. But right now, there's some lessons to be learned on what to do and what not to do. I think that Adidas is doing a lot of good things right now, and the product is firing. The sports promotions are firing. Their athletes are incredibly articulate. Two men going under 2 hours, and then also the woman breaking the women's only record. And what that means, just so you know, is there were no male pacemakers in the women's race. So they and they also had what was it a 10-minute start, or was it more 17 minutes? I'll have to go back and check on that. But what London did was fantastic. They put the sport on the global story. BBC did great coverage. I didn't get to watch it this year. I just had to see some snippets. I was watching, oh God, on FlowTrack, and it was okay. It just didn't have. They just didn't have the access that the folks that BBC have, and it's a difference. And it just and it's the same thing I felt about Boston this year. I watched the part of the global feed with Boston afterwards, because I was there. And what they do in the media room is they show on one side the local coverage, and on the other side the global coverage. And the local coverage can be a bit much, but people are into it. It's like 24 hours of lovely Boston Marathon, but they do it, and they do it well, and it works for their event. The super shoes. Well, we've got an issue right now where Abby Steiner is suing Puma over a carbon plated that has led to her having several surgeries, and she contends that Puma knew that this could happen and didn't tell her. If she has any documents that prove that, boy, she's going to pick up some money. But if she doesn't, it's going to be settled out of court. And I believe it's going to be settled out of court no matter what, because there's no way a brand wants this. Because if this goes successful, every brand is going to get sued. Just because people go, we live in a litigious world, and people will sue over having, too much cushioning. Who knows? But my thing is, if you're a coach and you've got athletes under the age of 25, carbon plate for Racing, maybe for a hard day. Vincent Maiori, the gentleman who just Muori, the gentleman who ran 2:05:54 in Toledo at the Glass City Marathon, purposely trains in non-super shoes. And why? Because your feet need motion. You don't need to be in the most cushy thing all the time. You don't need to be in something that's pushing you forward all the time. You need as little between your foot and the ground as possible, even some barefoot running. And it's a combination. That's why I like the old Nike Free. I thought it was a great shoe. I remember Paula Radcliffe telling me how she warmed up in it. If I had been coaching track athletes during that era, I'd have had them using that shoe too, because I think it helps get your feet moving, all your tendons moving, and it keeps your feet healthy. And right now, with the quality of product out there, I think you should have a cush shoe for your easy days and your long days. I think you should have a light trainer racer for your hard days. I think carbon plate for race days, and maybe some simulations. But I think you should really limit it no matter what age you are. And some people I know are training in it every day, and I think they're going to get hurt because too much of a good thing is not a good thing. Now, last subject, running stores, the care and feeding of running stores. We tell everybody to go to, there's that little light that's on in the back. Sorry about that. I'm seeing that. And let me turn this off. There we go. I got a little note on that. Sorry about that. The running stores are the height of running culture. The truth is. And I don't, the reason why so many people buy shoes online is because some running stores aren't doing a good job. And perhaps they don't have a running store in the local vicinity. But I encourage you to go to running stores. I go to them, whatever city that I'm in. I like to meet the owners. I like to meet the managers. I like to say hi. I like to sit and observe. I want to see people buying shoes and see if it's different in different parts of the country, right? The brands that are being successful are the ones that are supporting running retail. Our friends at Brooks. The light at the end of the tunnel for Nike will be developing those relationships. Adidas has great store relationships, and everywhere, unfortunately, in the U.S., they're very limited in terms of the number of running stores they work with, and I don't understand that because Adidas product is fantastic. There just needs to be education. There needs to be some support of it, more than putting stuff up on Instagram. And some of the other brands are getting hurt on Hoka, Saucony, because again, where do they promote themselves? They only do it on social media. They're not getting the word out there. And if you don't get the word out there, if you're not fighting it every day, you're not putting people in stores, you're not doing your job. It's a complicated job to make a running brand successful. You have to have great product, consistently great product. And that's a quote from Tom Hartke and Gary Slayton. And congratulations to Tom Hartke, who ran his 40th straight Boston Marathon this year. Tom's a good friend, known him since the 1980s. Him and Keith Peters were the first guys I met at Nike, and when I was at Runner's World, and I have seen him around ever since. Keith is still tooling around, and Tom is as well. I got to meet Tom and one of his daughters at the I think the pre-last year. So, and we got a picture, so I'll get that up as well. But again, congratulations, Tom, on your 40th. Boz told me all about it. Anyway, want to thank my sponsors. Brooks has been with me since 1990. Check out brooksrunning.com. They've got product and running, trail, fast performance, track, cross country. They've got the PR invite coming up on the 7th, and you should check that out. It's free streaming, and it brings the best high school kids in the country together, and they run, and junior high kids do too. It's a fun day. I think they have some elite races as well. Our friends at Furnished Quarter, who got me to New York. Furnished Quarter, if you're a quarters.com, if you're looking for a place for a 30-day stay, they have tremendous places, and it was very reasonable. So please check that out. Variably Storyworks, they're doing the Jim Thorpe saga, which will be on streaming, and I'll keep you updated on that. Jim Thorpe LLC. Our friends at Nike. Now, I've worked with Nike since 1985. My first Nike shoes were in 1975. The fall, it was the Nike Waffle Racer, a team in Bellarmine, which we're coming up on our 50th high school anniversary of my graduation, which was in 76. And I'm hoping to go to that. But that should be um, that should be a lot of fun. But Nike, I just saw the Nike LTV 1000 ACG, and I'm trying to get a pair. It looks really, really cool. But NikeRunning.com, learn about them there. And our friends at UFOS, they do all day recovery. It's ufos.com. My buddy Angel Martinez is there, is the co-CEO. He told me those shoes would change my life, and I've really enjoyed those shoes. They are great product, easy on your back. So run, jump, and throw today. Tell someone you love them. Do a random act of kindness. Bruce Halick, say, Larry, have you tried the new Ghost 18 yet? If so, what's your thoughts? I'm a Brooks person. My first running shoe was the Brooks Chariot. Thanks, Bruce. Hey, I've got the 17. The 18 is on the way, and I will be talking about it on an upcoming Coffee with Larry. Hey, Bruce, have a great day. So have a splendiferous day. Thank you, everybody, for checking out Coffee with Larry. You know, the podcast is now on YouTube, and I will post it on Facebook. I will post it on Twitter, and I will remind people about it on Instagram. Okay? Talk to you soon. Thanks, Bruce.